Hey everyone, thank you for clicking on the video. If you enjoy, please make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, and share with everyone. And if you have time after, please make sure you go to nateknighttalks.com and check out the NNT Community and Research Database. Thank you.
That is the underpinning for everything, and Nate Night Talks has to do ultimately with consciousness, and the last place we should ever be going to find the truth or get to the bottom of things is the government. That's the last truthful institution that there is outside of the media, but yet the majority of the population relies on them and doesn't believe things are true, real, or possible until the government or the media or pundits who are controlled by them or big corporations tell them that something is real, true, or possible. But in reality, truth lies within. We are all connected. We're all infinite beings connected to our higher selves and the infinite intelligence that is the universe. All things are connected. Therefore, information is the exact same. It's just a matter of tapping into that. And that's not like some woo-woo stuff. That's just the nature of the universe and information and frequency and resonance and everything that makes up this existence at its core. And so we can do it. It just takes a lot of work. And it ultimately will be within, and we have access to that information. And while it may not be as cut and dry or laid out on a silver platter that we might be hoping for in some type of Hollywood movie big reveal of the truth that we would want, it can still be accessed, and the knowing can still be there. Because we don't need to rely on these institutions that don't have our best will in mind at all. Matter of fact, that try to keep us enslaved and control our thoughts in many ways. And so that's the last place we should be going to try and find truth to begin with. But for certain people, the validation of the government and the mass media is very important. And so because of that, I talk about it a lot in this room. Because of that, Data and I are trying to get this information out as far as the documentation of these things goes, because that will be compelling enough for a lot of people, at the very least, to shift that perspective in consciousness and awareness and begin to understand that these things are very real. The true story is far more grand than anybody could even begin to realize. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg with it all. But if that's what it takes to get that initial paradigm shift, to get that reality to set in, then that's what we're going to do, because we have to communicate in a way that the rest of the population is communicating. And that usually goes through modalities like that. But that's not ultimately where the truth is going to lie. It's just going to give people, I think, the false validation that they're looking for from the institutions that they wrongfully trust. But nonetheless, it is validating, to see these things. It does let you know that, you're not crazy, because after a while of really doing heavy research into this stuff and going down all these rabbit holes and realizing that the more you know, the less you know, sometimes it's good to have that validation to know that you're, where everybody else is kind of brainwashed to think a certain way, and you're out here on the fringe going against that and really questioning things, that it can be isolating and very lonely. And so sometimes that validation in that form is encouraging, and it's good, and it lets you know that you're on the right track. And so for that reason, I think it holds weight and has value, but not much more outside of that, in my opinion anyway. But appreciate you, Hugo. Divine Being, you're up. Appreciate your patience. Oh, and really quick, DJ Toomp, if you DM me, I'll send it to you. I found it. I'll send you like a BBC article, I think. The bizarre beasts living in a Romanian poison cave, cut off for millions of years, its air with thick, harmful gases, yet an array of strange animals evolved. And this just goes to prove once again that life outside of our planet in completely different environments can evolve.
Yeah, I must read up on that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right up my alley, dude, for sure.
Yeah, I'll be happy to send it to you, man.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yep.
And hey, I just want to ask, since you said, so what do you recommend me to do? Because right now I'm on kind of confused place, because like you said, the government is the last thing. The thing is, I mean, so many people talk about the government that I just think the government really has the information as well. Other people also think so. What do you think that people should do instead of just going to government? Because I do believe they have, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I'm just in a confused place right now. So what do you think I should do?
Well, I definitely empathize and sympathize with that confusion. And I know everybody does who's researched this or any type of subject matter that has been relegated to the fringe and unfairly and unjustly stigmatized. The government, once again, we must separate the description of the elected government versus this unacknowledged cabal type of government that exists, the ones that, Eisenhower warned about, this breakaway one that doesn't answer, to the president or really anybody else outside of a few career, intelligence, directors or people at the very, very, very top. It's very compartmentalized, and very few people hold this information, and they don't answer to the will of the people or even to the elected government. Yet they siphon off illegally, trillions of dollars of our taxpayer money to projects that we have no, knowledge of, and likely never will. But that's the group that's doing this. It's not, Joe Blow, elected official. They're just con artists. Not all of them, but by and large, in my opinion. But you have to just take in information. You have to be discerning with everything that you are investigating, and that will take you down a lot of different rabbit holes of information. And the hard part about this subject, and why I think a lot of people get discouraged early on from doing it, is because it is so riddled with disinformation, lies, counterintelligence, deliberately so, to confuse and deceive people who are trying to get to the truth. But if you do it for any length of time, and you kind of don't lose hope, and you do so in as, I guess, academic or scientific of an approach, meaning you really look at, similarities, you look at reoccurrences, things that are corroborated over time, different accounts of similar things spanning cultures and timelines, and the evidence that would be there in any other type of a research-based, investigation into something. There is a lot of information that starts to rise to the top and make more sense. But yeah, it takes a lot of work. And that's why I always say in this room, like, I've done 12 years of research. I've seen these things firsthand, and I've traversed other realms of consciousness and exploration to better understand the unseen components of this, but I still ultimately don't know anything. I have ideas, I have feelings, I have certain knowings about things, but being able to prove them is going to be near impossible. But I can definitely, hang my head, if you will, or that's probably the wrong expression. I can definitely rest on certain things that seem to be true, that have risen to the top over and over, and that have been corroborated through certain declassified documents, expert and witness testimony, deathbed confessions, and then countless firsthand experiences from people all around the world. This isn't a subject that people are incentivized to lie about. If you even said you had a UFO encounter, it would cost you your job, potentially your life, if you knew actually too much, back in the day. Now they just destroy your reputation and your livelihood. But it would be career suicide. It would be social suicide. You become a pariah. Like, there was no monetary gain. Nobody would be watching. It's not like the CNN and Fox would come running to you with, cameras and microphones. Oh, tell us about your UFO encounter. It's not how it would work. And so people who've had genuine experiences, who've repeated them the same way, that same story over and over and over again, for the most part are probably telling the truth. Obviously, there's going to be some outliers. Obviously, there's going to be people that maybe aren't, the most educated observer of what they're seeing, and maybe things are, misunderstood, and that does happen, which is why I think by and large, 80 to 90% of what you see out there can be disregarded as either, a misidentification or a hoax or disinformation or whatever it may be, which goes back to why this is so frustrating, why this is so difficult, and why the mission I feel I have on here to continue to do this is to offer an encouragement with it, but also offer a more grounded, realistic, empowering perspective that we hold the the power within us to find this information, to ultimately try and get to the truth. We don't have to rely on these institutions. It does help to validate certain things for us, but ultimately, if we want to know the truth, we'll find the truth, or at least enough that we can better understand reality, what real reality actually is. And even if you get to that point, I feel like you've won in many ways. If you can get to a point that you have a level of knowing versus believing that certain things are real and true, then you're already kind of ahead of most people in this. But it's still an isolating, lonely journey. This isn't a mainstream topic, though. Now it's being talked about on the news, but still people don't care, by and large, which kind of really just tells a big story there about humanity, and I think perhaps about the apathy and fatigue that everybody is faced with the distrust for the government and the media institutions, and just not knowing what to believe or believe in anything anymore because they're just so used to being lied to, that they're just kind of fed up, or just have too much going on with COVID and losing livelihood and everything else that's going on, that it's one more thing, and they don't really care because it's not going to pay their bills. And so there's no real cut and dry path forward other than do the research, read books. Books are some of the best material that's out there. Don't be watching necessarily YouTube videos or blogs. Anybody can say anything and write anything. But if you're going to get published, it takes a little bit more effort, and you must have some type of a conviction to be putting that much effort into writing something all the way out and having it published and selling it. And so I think there's a little more weight can be given to those type of things. And then, you take it all in and you corroborate information, check the source, always check the source for motive, for agenda, for intent. And then, meditate on it, listen to your higher self, really get in touch with your consciousness and altered states of consciousness, whether that's through meditation, hypertropic breathing, psychedelics, if they call to you, whatever it is, and unlock the things unseen to get a better perspective on other things that are unseen, or untold rather, the greatest story ever denied. And that's really, the only avenue we have. And if enough of us, I think, do that and do it as a collective and share this information with, love and openness and compassion and empathy with people who may share different understandings, or their research may show different things, whatever it is, ultimately nobody knows anything. And so for us to bicker over these things and fight, it's completely destructive and counterproductive to getting to the truth in any means. And so if we can do this as a mass consciousness, as a collective, and get enough people who are genuinely trying to find the truth and doing so in a way that they're sharing it with the people around them, with a very compelling narrative that they're putting forth, based on fact and evidence and logic, something that at least sounds rational versus the way the subject is normally framed, but speak a language that people understand a bit more. And you do that, and the declassified documents, stuff like that help, because then you can well, check this out. Do you want to know how serious the government's been taking this for the past 80 years? Look at this. You want to know how serious they've been taking astral projection, remote viewing, mind control, advanced propulsion? This isn't new. And then suddenly it's usually enough to plant a seed and shift a paradigm that for those who are ready to hear, and they're along that, consciousness evolution or of their journey, it's usually enough to at least shift something. Whether or not they go full board or even care, it's still a choice. We're all individual consciousness here. Yes, we're all one, but we're all here learning our own things and experiencing our own things. And not everybody is going to be on that same path as you or I. And we must have compassion and love for that, and understand that this is our journey, and it's not going to be everybody's. And accepting those things, I think, gives you a little bit of peace. And then you don't stress, because ultimately they only have power if you give it to them. You are responsible solely for your own consciousness, your reality. You're creating it every day. And so don't give up that power, and stay curious, and do so with, once again, discernment and intellectual honesty. And you'll I think you'll get inevitably the answers you seek, or at least solace enough, I guess.